Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. At the beginning of the second millennium BC, cities had started to witness a certain vivacity, and new models of architecture and cemeteries appeared, in addition to creation of new forms of forestry and weapons. Moreover, this phase was distinguished by developed commercial and political relationship with most of the ancient eastern regions, particularly Egypt, Bilad al-Sham, North Syria, and east of Turkey. Besides, such phase was marked by the development of pottery manufacturing and the way of selecting the clay and mixing it, then molding it into shapes by means of a speedy wheels, thus producing elegant and versatile mazes. On the other hand, this phase was distinguished by a thorough Egyptian hegemony over Bilad al-Sham during the region of the 18th and 19th dynasties, who conquered the last of the Hyksos kings around the years 1567 BC, and the net through the campaigns embarked by Ptolemy III on Bilad al-Sham around the year 1418 BC. Also, it is characterized by the disappearance of the strong fortress backed up by compact layers of mud that were built by the Hyksos. Worth mentioning here that during the period, Palestine had witnessed a state of turmoil that affected the region from the northern and middle districts with the beginning of the region of the 18th dynasty, and that after the expulsion of the Hyksos from Egypt and their chasing them away, till Sharon in the north of Palestine. Such events were recorded in detailed manuscripts since the era of Thutmose III. Among such manuscripts, one relating that the Battle of Megiddo, that was under leadership of kings of Megiddo and the king of Kadesh on the Syrian part, who formed a coalition to which more than 1020 cities entered. Such event was also mentioned in one of Thutmose III topographical manifestos. Also, such scripts were found inscribed in one of the most obelisks that were erected in Karnak and Memphis, era of kingdom. During that period of the Philistines considered themselves the legitimate successors to the Egyptian authority in Palestine. Thus they held sway over most of its part. They are usually referred to as inhabitants of the Palestine coast, where they established a number of the main cities like Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Akir, Tal al-Safai, and others. The Canaanite impact had manifested itself over the Palestinians. Such effect can be traced in the names of their cities, like Dagon and Ashdod. Also, the religious life of the inhabitants of the Palestinian coast has its Canaanite origin. In addition to their religious edicts, most prominent of which is the consecrated series of Templar in Tal al-Khalish, that was built according to the fashion of Canaanite temples with a touch of Egyptian architecture. On the other hand, there were claims made by the Israeli archaeologists concerning that the origin of some archaeological discoveries and architectures, which they attribute to the old Israelis and which was known in the foreign source as Koret Rimzer. Israeli people. The word Israel refers to Zechariah alayhi salam, peace be upon him, who was the son of Isaac and the grandson of Ibrahim, peace be upon them, who was the father of the nation. Ibrahim was born in the city of Ur of Chaldees. He arrived at the land of Canaan around the 20th to 21st century BC. After leaving his country along with some members of his family to worship Allah, acting upon the divine revelation sent down to him as him clean used to worship idols while he was monotheist. Haran, situated in the eastern north between Euphrates and Kabul, was his first stop, where his father Terah passed away. He then proceeded till he arrived the Shakin Nablus. Ibrahim begot his elder son Ismail, peace be upon them, grandfather of the Arab, from his wife Hajra, peace be upon her. Then he had his second son Isaac, peace be upon him, from his wife Sarah, peace be upon her, who is the grandfather of the Jews. Isaac then begot Esau and Jacob, who begot 12 sons, each of whom was a forebear of one of the tribes of the Jews. Among the sons of Jacob was Joseph, peace be upon them, whose brethren out of graduates and envy cast him into a well in the desert, and claimed that he was killed. Then a group of Philistines found him, and he was sold to Egyptian traders, and there Joseph joined in the service of Pharaoh, where he wielded great authority. Thus he sent after his father and brothers. There the family of Jacob moved to Egypt. No one knows when did the Pharaoh of Egypt turn against them and started to subjugate and torture them, till the prophet Moses, peace be upon him, started to think imagination. Upon the mount, Allah inspired Moses to return to Egypt and save his clan and take them out of Egypt. Therefore Moses and Aaron, peace be upon them, returned to Egypt to get their clan out, and henceforth the travel of desperation began, which was around the year 1227. During that period the people of Moses renegades and worshipped the calf, upon which his 10 commandments were designated. Then the people of Israel remained in a state of astray for 40 years. The prophet Moses, peace be upon him, had sent more than one scout to explore situation in Canaan lands, who returned to inform him that Canaan is an influent land, outpouring with milk and honey. Despite this, its people were strong, and the Israel had no power to contend with them. When the Israel took the decision to enter the land of Canaan, they encountered although resistance from the inhabitants of the north region. Thus they had ventured start crossing east of Jordan first, where Moses, peace be upon him, died. Thereby Prophet Yunus bin Nuh took over the leadership, who instead on fighting. The first city that the Israel first wrote was Ariha, where they besieged it till it fell into their hands. Then they laid their hands on most of the north of Palestine, while the Canaanites retained a part of it. As for the rest of Palestinians, they retained the western part. Ever since the era of Zeus, which was the period succeeding the death of Uzzah, the three nations coexisted for hundreds of years, which was penetrated by a series of Canaanites Israel wars and Palestine Israel's war. That era extended over a century and a half, during which 12 years had ruled, last of whom was Samuel. Then the Israel and had agreed upon appointing Shaul as their king under recommendation of Samuel himself, and that to unite their tribes under one entity. Though he died in one of the battles against the Philistines, he was then succeeded by Prophet and King David, peace be upon him, 1010 BC to 971 BC, followed by his son Prophet Solomon alayhi salam, peace be upon him, whose era was marked by peace, not war. Moreover, he was characterized by sagacity and his commercial activity. On their year 724 BC, the Israel entity got vanquished on the hands of the Assyrian. Then came Nebuchadnezzar, who defeated the Assyrian and founded the Chaldean empires that ruled Palestine.